Hi, I'm Sarah Thin and I'm a law student at Durham University.
And I'm Jonathan Elmer. I'm a freelance ecologist and I used to work as Sustainable Development Manager at Durham City Council.
We are the Green Party candidates for the Neville's Cross ward, and we want to produce a future city plan for the city of Durham that shows how the city might be in 20 years' time with a much needed sprinkle of green thinking.
Our plan will aim to ensure that residents of Durham are able to live a fulfilled life without compromising the wider needs of other people and the environment, both in the present and future. And it will be based on the latest research and evidence and structured around the idea of providing for our real needs. In particular, our social, economic, environmental, housing, transport and food needs.
We think the council have got this badly wrong, but producing an alternative plan is not a simple job, and we would like to employ a sustainable planning professional who will be able to ensure that our plan is both deliverable and built upon solid evidence, and that it really does provide for the needs of the residents of Durham and not big business, as is currently the case.
So this crowdfunded appeal will enable us to employ a planning professional to help us create our future city plan. If you'd like to help us put this plan together, do give us a donation. So what about our economic needs? We're told by council planners that artificially increasing the population of the county is the only way to create economic growth. But actually, we need economic stability and an end to the cycles of growth and decline that have characterised the area for so long. So we need to consider creation of jobs for the people of Durham that live here now and will live here in the future. And projections of future populations must make use of the best available evidence. We need to revitalise our city centre, challenging the rents, rates and lease agreements that have pushed independent retailers from the city and led to a shopping experience that might be found anywhere else in the country. We need to rein in the rampant growth of out-of-town retail that requires cars and destroys the city centre. We need to take advantage of the economic opportunities that ought to grow from the world-class university within our city. And we need to ensure that we're not hostage to the fortunes of economies and big business that are beyond our control.
And what about our housing needs? Durham County Council believes that an increase in the number of households has to mean massive new housing estates in the Greenbelt. But our figures show that by building smarter, so by making more efficient use of land, by focusing on what people need rather than what house builders want to supply, we can provide for predicted local needs with a minimal impact upon the countryside. Projections from the ONS show that we will need housing for an ageing population and will need affordable housing for the residents of Durham City who earn a normal salary. Yet all we're offered is the volume house builder's standard product, a sea of barrack boxes. Nowadays it's possible to build housing that is so well insulated that heating costs are negligible, that captures rainwater, generates energy and even creates new wildlife habitats. But what we are getting is hyper expensive, poor quality units with tiny rooms and gardens, and no community space where people might meet, play or grow food. We need to consider how we can make better use of brownfield sites and spaces within and adjacent existing settlements to reduce the requirement for greenbelt development. We need to also consider how we can ensure that housing is located near to shops, schools, employment and other services to reduce the need to travel, especially by car. We also need to consider how we can rebuild balanced communities and reverse the conversion of family houses into student rented properties. Students do make up a valuable part of our community, but student housing needs to be managed in a way that doesn't destroy local community, create out of control noise and waste problems, and leave ghost streets where all the houses are empty for 5 months in the year.
And our transport needs. Council planners believe that the only way to deal with increased residents in the city is to build 2 new roads through the countryside, costing at least £100 million and causing immense environmental damage. They're following the traffic management philosophy of the 1960s and 70s in the 21st century. We continue to believe the fallacy that new roads will ease traffic congestion, so we create more space for motorists, which promotes even greater private car use. We need to break free from this cycle. We need to build cycleways, greenways and footpaths and make it safe and enjoyable to walk and cycle. We need to improve the reliability, frequency, coverage and value for money of public transport. We need to work with major employers and schools in the city to implement workplace travel plans that provide incentives to employers that reduce their car use. We need to improve levels of car sharing and use of car clubs to reduce the need for private car ownership. And we need to reduce the need to travel by making sure that all of our towns and villages have access to good quality retail and community services.
And what about our environmental needs? The council hopes to build large numbers of houses around Durham City that will meet minimal environmental standards. Most new homeowners will need a car to access services, so the approach will require a major road network expansion, and this will have a direct impact on the mature countryside and its wildlife that surrounds our city. What's more, with this approach you may as well kiss goodbye to any hope of reducing carbon emissions. We think that this is irresponsible and that Durham City should be playing its part in the global fight against climate change. The approach to housing, economic regeneration and transport that we've just described already address the need to reduce carbon emissions. But what about more local environmental concerns? Some Durham residents face nitrogen dioxide pollution levels from car exhaust that are 50% above safe levels. The only solution is to put in place measures that will reduce car use. We are also simply allowing valuable green spaces to be covered by housing as developers seem to call the shots. This has to stop. Durham is a World Heritage Site and this forms a major foundation to its economy. We have to ensure that this heritage is conserved and to stop developments that don't complement its heritage. We need to get rid of the ocean of to let signs that spoil the view down most residential streets in the city centre.
What about our food needs? Our food needs are so often taken for granted, but with shelter and water, they're fundamental to our survival. Most people currently buy food from a supermarket that may have come from anywhere in the world, but reduced future availability of oil may prevent this as fuels become more expensive. We should plan for a future where we aim to meet our food needs as much as possible from local production, and this of course gives us a long-term incentive to sustain the fertility and productivity of our soil. Our Future City Plan will address the need to create and conserve the space required for such local production. We need to protect our fertile agricultural land from development and encourage farming practices that sustain soil. We need to provide opportunities for householders to grow their own food, so more allotments and green spaces dedicated to food production. We need to build on some of the great examples of community food production, like the wonderful Abundant Earth, a workers' cooperative based near Broome Park.
And last but certainly not least, our social needs. The long-term planning of our future city is about much more than jobs, houses and roads. It's also about creating a community that provides for our social needs. We can't take this for granted and we need to actively plan the creation of places where all Durham residents can meet, chat, play, plan and organise together. These places are essential to our moral development and come in many forms, from outdoor spaces like play areas, parks, gardens, nature reserves and our wonderful marketplace, but also include indoor spaces like community centres and religious buildings. The last few years have seen a depressing decline in the number of such places, and this hints at poor understanding of real priorities by our current council decision makers.
So just to summarise, our plan will aim to ensure that residents of Durham City are able to live a fulfilled life without compromising the wider needs of other people and the environment, both in the present and future. And it will be based on the latest research and evidence and structured around the idea of providing for our real needs. In particular, our social, economic, environmental, housing, transport and food needs. If you agree that an alternative plan needs to be presented to the Council, and if you support the idea we have put across for a future city plan, we would really appreciate a contribution towards the costs of pulling it together. Thanks for listening and all the best.
Thank you.